Chinese fast fashion retailer Shein has faced sharp criticism from UK MPs over concerns about its supply chain transparency and workers' rights.
French authorities say that they are looking into suspending access to the Shein online marketplace if the company can't prove its products comply with French law.
Don't shop on Shein again until you hear this. If you've got a Shein tab open right now, a cart full of just a few cheap things, I'm not saying close it, I'm saying pause. Because once you know what's actually behind that $5 top and those OMG, this was only $3 TikTok hauls, it's going to be very hard to look at that checkout button the same way again. On the surface, Shein feels kind of harmless. It's fun, it's colorful, it's built like a game. You scroll, you add things to your cart, the way you'd add songs to a playlist. New drops every day, flash sales, spin the wheel coupons, countdown timers. It doesn't feel like shopping in the old school sense, it feels like playing. And the app is scary good at knowing exactly what you want before you even do. And that's not an accident. Shein has turned fast fashion into something even more intense, ultra-fast fashion. At any given time, the site is reported to have hundreds of thousands of items live, with up to 10,000 new pieces being added in a single day. That's not a clothing store, that's a content feed made of fabric. In the US, one market analysis found that roughly 40+% of Gen Z buys at least one item from Shein every month. The brand isn't just popular, it's woven into people's routines. But here's the part the app doesn't show you. For every tiny price tag and every Shein haul video, someone, somewhere, is paying the difference. And it's usually not Shein. Tonight we're going to walk through what investigations, journalists, courts, and environmental groups have actually found about Shein. No rumors, no TikTok conspiracy threads, real reports, real numbers, real people, from factory floors where workers sew for 18 hours a day to lab tests that found toxic chemicals in Shein clothes at levels way above legal limits, to emissions so high that Shein has now been called the single biggest polluter in the fast fashion industry. If you still want to hit place order after this, that's your choice. But at least you'll know what you're really buying. Let's start where every Shein order starts. Not at your doorstep, but inside the factories. The real cost of that cheap top. When you're scrolling Shein at 1 a.m., it's easy to think, how bad can it be? It's just clothes. But a Channel 4 documentary in the UK decided to actually go inside the supply chain and answer that question. And what they found, honestly, sounds less like a workplace, more like a punishment. The documentary, called Untold Inside the Shein Machine, sent an undercover worker with a hidden camera into factories in Guangzhou, China, that were producing clothes for Shein. The footage shows workers starting their day at around 8 a.m. and not finishing until the early hours of the next morning. That's roughly 18 hours in the factory, with just a few hours left to sleep, wash, exist. One worker said flatly on camera, "There's no such thing as Sundays here." In one factory, employees were reportedly expected to churn out at least 500 garments per day. Their pay? About 4,000 yuan a month, roughly the equivalent of a few hundred US dollars. Their first month's wages could be withheld entirely. In another workshop, some workers weren't even given a base salary at all. They were paid per piece, as little as 0.27 yuan, around 3 or 4 cents, for each garment they finished. Think about that. The top you grab for $5 may have earned the person who made it a few cents, not dollars, cents. And if they made a mistake on one item, in some cases 2/3 of their daily wage could be deducted as a penalty. And this wasn't some one-off rogue supplier. Even before the Channel 4 documentary, a Swiss NGO called Public Eye had already reported that workers at multiple Shein suppliers in Guangzhou were routinely clocking around 75 hours a week, in clear violation of Chinese labor law, with blocked emergency exits and unsafe conditions inside the workshops. That's the hidden math behind those too good to be true prices. Someone is working 17 to 18 hours a day with 1 day off a month so you can get a dress for the price of a Starbucks drink. To be fair, Shein didn't just ignore the documentary. After the film aired and the backlash hit, the company said it was extremely concerned by the allegations and promised to investigate. It later announced that it would spend the equivalent of around $15 million on improving standards in its supply chain. In 2024, Shein also disclosed in its own sustainability, reporting that it had found instances of child labor among its suppliers and claimed it had taken action, including stronger audits and policies after those cases were discovered. So yes, they're responding. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Those changes came after undercover cameras, international headlines, and public pressure made it impossible to look away. Until then, the system was working exactly as designed, pushing human beings to the limit so that the app on your phone never runs out of new in items. And even now, more recent reporting out of what journalists have started calling Shein Village in Guangzhou describes workers walking tens of thousands of steps a day inside hot, cramped workshops, often earning under £1 an hour, with long days and penalties for mistakes still very much on the table. So when you see a haul of 50 items for a few $100s, that's what's hiding behind the try-on video. Not just cheap clothes, but a whole system built on people being treated as disposable. The ultra-fast fashion machine. To understand why the pressure is so intense, you have to understand how Shein actually works. This isn't like a normal fashion brand that releases a spring collection, a summer collection, done. Shein operates more like TikTok than Zara. The company uses data and algorithms to watch what people are clicking, saving, adding to cart, and posting about. Then it turns those trends into physical items as fast as possible. A new design can go from concept to product in as little as 10 days. It doesn't feel like fashion anymore. It feels like content. Clothes are just the medium. But that scale has consequences. First, the environmental side. Shein's own sustainability reporting has shown that its carbon emissions almost doubled between 2022 and 2023, reaching around 17 million metric tons of CO2 in a single year, more than several coal plants combined. And enough for multiple analyses to label Shein the biggest polluter in fast fashion right now. A big chunk of that footprint comes from how the clothes move, not just how they're made. Shein relies heavily on air freight, shipping out countless individual parcels directly from China to customers in the US and around the world. Reuters has reported that transport emissions alone were over 8 million tons of CO2 equivalent in 2024. And Shein's total footprint still far outweighs brands like Zara's parent company Inditex. Second, there's the waste. Ultra-cheap, ultra-trendy clothing doesn't stay in people's wardrobes for long. Items are often worn a few times and then tossed. In France, charity shops and sorting centers have reported being flooded with low-quality fast fashion from platforms like Shein and Temu. So much so that the percentage of donated clothes they can actually resell has dropped from over 13% to around 5% to around in just a couple of years. The rest? It's either downcycled, exported, or ends up as waste. So the machine keeps spinning. Trends, clicks, orders, shipments, returns, landfill, and in the middle of that, somewhere between the warehouse floor and your bedroom mirror, is the worker who stitched your $7 dress at 2 in the morning so it could show up in time for your weekend plans. What Shein clothes are actually made of. Now, you might be thinking, okay, the labor and the emissions are bad, but I'm just one person buying one outfit. Is it really that deep? Unfortunately, yes, because it's not just how the clothes are made or shipped, it's what's in them. In late 2025, Greenpeace Germany decided to test Shein clothing again. A few years after an earlier investigation had already raised red flags. They bought 56 Shein garments across 8 countries and sent them to an independent lab for chemical analysis. The results were ugly. 18 out of those 56 items, about 32%, contained hazardous chemicals in concentrations above what's allowed under the EU's REACH chemical safety rules. Some exceeded legal limits by huge margins. 7 jackets in the sample contained PFAS, the so-called forever chemicals used to make fabrics water and stain repellent, at levels up to 3,000 times higher than the legal limit. PFAS are a big deal. They hardly break down in the environment, can accumulate in the human body, and are linked by scientists to cancers, fertility problems, immune system damage, and developmental issues in children. The lab also found high levels of phthalates, plasticizers that can interfere with hormones and child development, in 14 products, with 6 of those exceeding the legal limit by a factor of 100 or more. Some of the worst offenders were items aimed at kids, including costumes. This isn't just an environmental issue happening somewhere over there. These are clothes people wear on their skin. Greenpeace and the lab pointed out that consumers can be exposed to these chemicals through sweat, skin contact, and inhaling fibers. And when those clothes are washed or thrown away, the chemicals wash out into rivers, soil, and eventually the food chain. Shein responded by saying it was investigating and would remove any identified products as a precaution. But this was not the first time something like this had come up. Earlier tests back in 2022 had already flagged dangerous chemicals in Shein items. and the company had publicly promised to improve its chemical management system. Greenpeace's conclusion, after retesting in 2025, was blunt. Those promises do not appear to be working. So when you hold a Shein jacket that claims to be water repellent and easy care, it's worth asking, at what cost? Not just to the planet, but to the person wearing it. The design theft problem no one can ignore. One thing Shein has mastered, maybe a little too well, is speed. Trends appear on TikTok one day, and somehow, magically, they're for sale on Shein the next. At first glance, it seems impressive, but behind that speed is one of Shein's biggest and most consistent controversies. Independent artists, small clothing labels, jewelry makers, bag designers, you name it. They've all accused Shein of stealing their work. Not inspired by, not similar vibe. Some pieces appear to be copied down to the exact stitch, pattern, phrase, or illustration. Dozens of creators have come forward over the years, posting side-by-side images online, pointing out how their design was lifted, mirrored, or replicated with only a molecule of difference. And yes, some companies accidentally stumble into design overlap, but Shein's problem isn't accidental, it's systemic. They release such an unimaginable volume of products, tens of thousands a day, that the line between inspiration and copy-paste dissolves. And because Shein relies on a massive network of third-party manufacturers feeding its catalog, there's almost no oversight on originality. Whoever uploads a design fastest wins. Several designers have even filed lawsuits saying Shein's system isn't just copying, it's automated copying. Some have even alleged that Shein uses algorithms to scrape designs at scale, detect what's trending among small creators, and mass manufacture lookalikes before the original artist even wakes up. Whether or not that's proven in court, it tells you something important. Artists genuinely believe Shein operates at a speed only a machine could achieve. It's not just frustrating for designers, it's career-destroying. Imagine spending weeks creating a piece of art only for a giant corporation to print it on a $5 t-shirt overnight and flood the internet with it. The original creator gets nothing. No credit, no pay, no recognition, just another Shein dupe circulating on TikTok. And of course, Shein apologizes, removes listings when caught, makes statements about respecting artists. But the cycle never really stops, because design theft isn't a glitch in their system. It is the system, the influencer problem, and why so many people are silent. You've probably noticed something strange when creators talk about Shein. They rarely mention the scandals. They don't bring up the factories. They don't mention the chemical tests. They definitely don't talk about design theft. But what they do mention, very loudly, is their discount code. Use my code for 15% off. Thank you to Shein for sponsoring this haul. This video is in partnership with Shein. Influencers have become one of Shein's most powerful weapons, and the brand knows exactly what it's doing. Create a tidal wave of positivity, excitement, and hauls so massive that the darker stories get buried under piles of $3 tops. Shein doesn't just send gifted items to influencers. They send entire suitcases worth of products. They sponsor mass Shein trips, where influencers are flown out, pampered, fed, photographed, handed curated tours of facilities, and encouraged to share only the polished version of the brand. The factories shown on these tours, carefully selected. The workers, briefed. The environments, sanitized for the camera. Influencers love the deals, the sponsorship money, and the engagement spikes they get from haul content. And Shein loves the army of creators drowning out criticism with positivity. It's not just marketing, it's narrative control. But here's where it gets awkward. Several influencers who took Shein sponsorships later admitted they felt pressured to avoid mentioning anything negative. Some said they didn't know about the controversies until viewers called them out. Others quietly deleted their videos and moved on. Shein's influencer strategy works brilliantly until someone does their own research. The data privacy question no one talks about. Shein isn't just a clothing company, it's a data company. If you've ever wondered why the app feels scarily good at predicting your taste, it's because Shein collects a mountain of data. Every swipe, every tap, every pause, every scroll speed, every item you click but don't buy, it all gets fed into algorithms. The more you browse, the more the app learns about you. But here's where things get concerning. Shein has faced multiple accusations and fines related to customer data mishandling. Years ago, they were hit with penalties for failing to properly disclose a major data breach. And despite the company saying they've improved, cybersecurity experts remain skeptical because Shein's scale and speed make oversight incredibly difficult. The thing is, Shein's website and app aren't just shopping platforms, they're behavioral gold mines. They gather demographic information, purchase patterns, browsing behaviors, even indicators of your mood. skewed based on what you save or delete. And unlike many Western companies, Shein doesn't always operate in regions with strict data privacy frameworks. When you download Shein, you're not just giving it access to your wardrobe, you're giving it access to your mind, your habits, your impulses, your financial patterns, and the app is designed to read you like a book. The more you scroll, the sharper its predictions become. And the sharper its predictions become, the more you spend. It's not just fashion, it's psychology. The tax loophole. Shein benefits from... Here's a fun fact that isn't fun at all. One of the reasons Shein can sell clothes so cheaply is because they've mastered exploiting international tax loopholes. Many countries have a threshold for import taxes, meaning items below a certain value can enter tax-free. Shein ships most items individually and keeps them extremely low in price, which means countless packages slip through customs without being taxed. Multiply that by millions of orders, and Shein saves a fortune. This loophole means Shein can price items impossibly low, while domestic stores struggle to compete. Those stores pay local taxes, they pay local wages, they follow safety regulations. Shein doesn't have to play by the same rules. It's not a level playing field. Shein is playing underwater, dodging obstacles that drown everyone else. As governments wake up to this, several countries have already begun calling for policy changes. Reform is coming, slowly. But until then, Shein enjoys an advantage that keeps prices artificially low and competitors gasping for air. The psychology of shopping. Why Shein feels addictive. There's one more thing most people don't realize. Shein's app isn't designed like a shopping platform. It's designed like a game. Endless scrolls, flash deals, points, timers, coupons, mystery gifts, daily spins, recommendations that feel like they came from your diary. The app keeps your brain in a constant loop of micro rewards. It's the same mechanism used in slot machines, casino games, and social apps engineered to be addictive. Shopping becomes less about needing clothes and more about the dopamine hit of winning a deal. That's why people spend hours browsing. That's why carts explode with 40 items. That's why hauls became a trend. People think they're shopping, but psychologically, they're playing, and Shein profits from that play every single second. The real cost of cheap, when you zoom out and look at everything, the working conditions, the environmental destruction, the chemical risks, the design theft, the influencer silence, the data mining, the loopholes, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Cheap isn't cheap, not really. Cheap is a trick, a disguise, a price tag hiding a story. Shein's whole appeal is built on the idea that affordability equals accessibility. Everyone deserves fashion. Everyone deserves to look good without spending much. And on the surface, that sounds generous. It sounds progressive. It sounds like a brand giving people power. But when a company makes things this cheap, someone else is paying the true price. Workers pay with their health and their sleep. The planet pays with its air, its soil, its oceans. Small designers pay with their art being copied into oblivion. You pay with clothes that fall apart after a few wears, chemicals that shouldn't touch human skin, and a closet full of items that don't bring you joy, just clutter. Shein isn't selling accessibility. It's selling illusions, fast illusions, cheap illusions, addictive illusions. And illusions always crack eventually. The future of fashion and why your choices matter. Here's the thing, nobody tells you. You don't have to become some perfectly ethical, linen-wearing saint overnight. You don't need to swear off shopping forever or memorize fiber compositions to become a better consumer. You don't have to be extreme. You just have to be aware. If millions of people can unknowingly contribute to Shein's rise, then millions of people can also help slow it down. Even small changes matter. Buying fewer items, prioritizing quality over quantity, supporting small creators whose designs won't survive another global copying machine, choosing brands that prove their standards instead of hiding behind prices, repairing instead of replacing. Taking a moment before clicking checkout to ask, why is this so cheap? Who made this? Where will it end up? The fashion industry shifts with demand. Brands follow the money, and when customers demand better, companies are forced to evolve. Even the giants. Shein grew because people didn't know better. Shein slows down when people finally do. What this means for you. You deserve nice things. You deserve clothes you feel confident in. Clothes that last longer than your next laundry cycle. Clothes that aren't quietly poisoning the water supply or made under conditions that would break you to witness firsthand. You deserve to shop without accidentally funding the darker parts of global fashion. This video isn't about guilt, it's about clarity. Shein wants you to see only the front, the cute dresses, the low prices, the influencer hauls, the endless new arrivals. But behind that curtain is an operation built on speed at any cost, and the cost is high. Now that you know, the choice is yours, not out of fear, out of awareness. If you still want to shop there, that's your decision. But at least now, you're not going in blind. If you learned something today, or if this made you rethink even one thing in your wardrobe, hit the like button so more people see this. Share it with someone who shops on Shein without knowing what's behind the clothes. And if you want more videos that pull back the curtain on the companies you trust, make sure you subscribe, because this is just one chapter in a much bigger story about the truth behind everyday products. Thanks for watching.